Greetings and felicitations, children of technology. This is Alex Witchfinder. I'm back here again. I usually do only one video yearly for my channel, which is the best of the year. But there's a channel that every week I'm watching so avidly. Their live streams every Friday night, which is Heavy Metallurgy, and they put out this contest. It's not actually a contest, it's more like a fun game to play, which is the Metal Tag 2026, in which you're supposed to show and comment about some metal records. And I thought it was a good option to not leave my channel silent for one whole year, especially considering that after my recent best of the year video I've got so many new followers. Thank you for that. And as I said, I'm not here for making anything out of YouTube, so consider liking and subscribing if you are up for this kind of content, but don't expect me to be as active as many other channels or people are here, because that's definitely not for me. So Marty, Alan, and all the people that are responsible for the live streams are people that I feel like I owe something, because they give so much to me. Even though I'm not exactly participating much, but it is a good stream, so everyone who's interested in metal and in-depth conversations about the subject should definitely check their channel. I'll link it here. So let's start. There are 20 different categories here for the Metal Tag 2026. Most of them you need to show record or talk about it, and let's start. So first one, Giddey-Up. 2026 is the year of the Fire Horse. Show an album with a horse on the cover. So, there's no other possible fit for that. And if you're showing anything else that is not this, you're losing points. They're saying that you lose 3 points if you show something with a unicorn. But anything for me that is not Maniac Butcher is losing points. There are more than one album with horses on the cover. Considering Maniac Butcher could also be on the Joker category here, that I'm gonna speak a little later, I didn't know which one to pick, so I'm showing both Barbarians and Lucian Antichrist. Not sure if the pronounce is exactly like that. My Czech friends can help me with that. Classic black metal band from Czech Republic. And if I would put this on the Joker category, this would be even funnier, because this album is numbered 529 out of 500. So I really don't understand what they want to do with that. But still, it's a great band, although the covers might look a bit funny, and yeah, when you read their interviews, it makes it even funnier. But musical wise, this is top notch, old school classic black metal. Yeah. Category number 2, Nostalgia. Show an album that you do not think it is very good, but you can't bring yourself to get rid of it. So that's a band I love. I would say it's probably the atmospheric black metal band of all times. Maybe not the best, but the one that when you think about atmospheric black metal, it comes to your mind. Although their first album is not as good, especially considering to the streak of albums that they put right after this one. I'm talking about Summoning's first album, Lugboats. This is nostalgic because I started listening to it in the 90s. Late 90s, it was when I got into summoning, and most of their other albums are among my favorite ones. But this one, they still haven't found their sound yet, so this is more classic black metal rather than the atmospheric black metal that they followed after this. Although you already have this Tolkien obsession showing up from here, it's in other CDs, other albums, such as Minas Morgul, Dol Guldur, or Stronghold, that they reach their peak for me. And this one, they're closer musically to Abigur, which is another Austrian black metal band that is associated to summoning, that shared members with summoning. So yeah, good band, although this is not their best album. Although I feel nostalgic about it, and I can get rid of it because, well, it's a band I love. Although this is not an album I listen to that often. Category number 3, which is GOAT. Show your favorite new album released in 2025. I don't want to talk about much about it because you can check my video of best albums of the year. I'll just show it here and I'll link my other videos so you can see my considerations about the favorite albums in general of 2026. But my GOAT of 2025 was Bluthaus Nord, Ethereal Horizons, French black metal band, avant-garde. Nothing much more to be said about Bluthaus Nord, except for the fact that they're probably one of the 5 main bands in activity in the last 20 years, always pushing the boundaries forward. I could talk about Bluthaus Nord in the evolution subject here as well, but I decided to go for something else. So let's keep going with this. Category number 4, From Beyond. Show a favorite album that is not a metal album. And this one I have it on CD. It is this one. Can you read that? Well, I definitely cannot. I'm talking about the Smashing Pumpkin, Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. So, regular version, Japanese version. Well, this album is probably one of the most well-known albums that came out in the 90s. A peak in alternative rock, and although some tracks here might even have some metal influences, Bodies from the second album here is a song that even Cult of Luna, if I'm not wrong, made a cover out of it. There are other metal bands that play Smashing Pumpkin songs, and Billy has good relationship with some metal musicians. I think he had some collaboration with Tony Iommi on Iommi's solo album, and I would say that Siamese Dream and Melancholy are among my favorite albums of all times, although not a metal band. And I know that his figure is quite controversial, as many other artists in the showbiz are. But yes, I love this album, and it never gets old. And yeah, I could listen to it every month of my life for the rest of my life, and I know that I'm gonna be excited about it as I was from the first time I ever heard it. So yeah, From Beyond, the Smashing Pumpkins. 5. The Unknown. Show an album that you can remember ever hearing about someone talking about it on YouTube. Well, not on YouTube, nor anywhere else. I'm talking about Mordräder. That is a German black metal band, one-man band, and I don't know. As I said, it's not a band that I hear people talking about it. It sounds to me like the perfect mix between the old Burzum with Disaster. So you have this very heavy metal, thrash metal, riffing style with the atmosphere of Heveslicetaros and Philosophem all in one. And I think this combined the two of my favorite subgenres of black metal into one band, and I wish this band would get more recognition. I think this is their only album, although he has an EP or a demo that came before. I am not sure how easy it is to find this kind of material nowadays, and yeah, but definitely check this out. Mordhida, Towards the Hill of Triumph. Great band and great album. Next one, Front Loaded. Show an album whose first song is the best song. Well, pretty much every song here could be their best, but the first one, I think it has to do with the way that our generation starts listening to music, to put it to play from the beginning to the end. And the first time I listened to this, the first track, it caught me so much attention, and it's an album that I loved from moment one, in which I heard almost 25 years ago, and right now it's not different. I'm talking about Darkness Descends by Dark Angel. The track Darkness Descends, this is how pretty much every thrash metal should sound if they were perfect. And yeah, let's forget about what Gene Hoglan and his pals did the last year and focus on what he did and changed our lives forever. So yeah, Dark Angel, that's my front-loaded album. The next one, we're going to number 7, Encore. Show an album that you think it would be better if it were longer. Alright, as I mentioned the first one there, if you don't show Maniac Butcher, you're wrong. I think that for the Encore, this is the only possible choice as well. I'm talking about In the Sign of Evil by Sodom. This is arguably the best EP of all times, and I could also pick the EPs from Hellhammer, and that could be better. I mean, that could be longer, although it couldn't be better. It's the same case in here. Although Hellhammer evolved into Celtic Frost, at least for the first album and the first EP as well, in which they released more stuff of the same vibe. But what Sodom did on this album, it's restricted to here. Their further album, Obsessed by Cruelty, is not in the same way as it was here. The tracks they have a different approach. Although I like it, it is a more cult than good, and this here is just a perfect classic. And yeah, with 5 tracks, I think this should have 500 in this style. I would never get tired of it. And even though Persecution Mania and Obsessed by Cruelty, that, well, Persecution Mania is not at hand, but Obsessed by Cruelty is here. Although it has way more songs, it is not the same way as it was here. So yeah, the Encore, this is the album for the category. And I wish Sodom would release tracks that were as evil, with the same production, with the same raw power of black metal, first wave of black metal, thrash metal, death metal like as they were here, especially considering how they looked before. So yeah, that was my number 7. Alright, category number 8, Fail. Show an album that you bought that disappoint you. Well, this was a blind buy, and therefore I got disappointed by it. I'm talking about, well, this one I don't have in a vinyl, but the CD, hard to see from here. But I am talking about The Devil's Blood, Tabula Rasa, or Death and the Seven Pillars. So this one followed albums that I really love by The Devil's Blood. But this one here, I don't know. You know that feeling that you have when an album is so good that is like just killers, no fillers. This is the other way around. I feel that every track here is more or less of a filler, and I was expecting more stuff in the vein of Christ or Cocaine, In the Wings of Gloria, or even Voodoo Dust, all these classic Devil's Blood tracks from the albums previously that I grew up loving, bringing this dissection riffing style to a more occult rock approach. But this one here, well, I bought it. I'm not gonna get rid of it, but if I tell you that I heard it more than once or twice, I'm lying, and I'm probably not gonna hear it for the next couple of years until I forget totally about it, and then when I listen to it again, I'll probably be disappointed at it again. So yeah, this is my fail album. 9. The Return. An album that you played in 2025 that you haven't played in more than a year. Alright, let's talk about None Shall Defy by Infernal Majesty. Also, classic thrash death metal album. And that's a band that, to be honest, I don't know much about them except for this album. And that could also be on the category of, what's the name of it? Front loaded, because their first track, Overlord, is an anthem of death in thrash. And yeah, I love this album. I don't think I've ever heard any other album by Infernal Majesty. I don't know what they are up to. I don't know if the band is still active. I don't know anything about it. All I know is that for more than 20 years I love this album, and every time I play it, it is a good comeback. Although I tend to spend lots of time without listening to it. And yeah, I found this old press of the album last year, and I was like, okay, it's time for me to finally have it. And that's why I heard it after I don't know how long, and I wasn't disappointed at all. So yeah, this was my The Return. Category number 10, Joker. Show an album with hilarious cover art. I'm not picking the Maniac Butcher again, although they would be a perfect depiction of that. Let's talk about a Danish band that also doesn't get the recognition that they deserve. Randy. This is a compilation of pretty much everything that they released. This is also the cover art of their 7 inches single EP, The Beast, which is what they are well known for. This band was recently rediscovered by, let's say, many people. I'm not sure if they ever played or if they have anything to do with the festival here in Germany, Keep It True, but I know that they're getting some recognition finally again, because this is such a killer heavy metal album, and this cover is absolutely ridiculous. This massive head, this goblin ears, and this green skin, and I don't know, is he needing a wrist or something like that? Does it have some relation to Saturn devouring his own son, or you know that painting I'm talking about? Yeah, well, this is a 2025 repress. So if you never heard of Randy, ignore how ridiculous this cover art looks and listen to it, because this is serious business heavy metal from the 80s. Yearning. Name a potential album release that you're anxiously awaiting in 2026. I'm gonna talk about Brazilian death metal band that put two great albums in the previous years, and they also have a split that I have it there, but I'm not gonna show the split. But anyways, I'm talking about Fossilization, a band from São Paulo. This is a project from, well, right now it's not a project anymore. I think this turned into a full band, or at least a main band, of Vaca from Jupiterian, a sludge death metal band that's also a great band, but that stopped releasing things ever since Fossilization started putting their albums, and now they're basically releasing one every couple of years, and their new one should be released, I think, in a couple months from now. If I'm not wrong, this is an Italian label, Everlasting Spill. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. There are some singles that are already available. I tend not to listen to singles, I wait for the entire experience, but Fossilization is a band that I'm definitely looking forward to hear this year and hopefully seeing live again. Okay, number 12, Collector Scum. In your collection, is there a pesky gap in a band's discography that you're hoping to fill? Yes, definitely. I have it on CD, but I feel like I want the vinyl because it belongs with the others. I'm talking about Better Than Raw by Halloween, and I don't understand why this is not being repressed on vinyl for such a long time. Well, maybe because Nuclear Blast, which is the record label that were responsible for Halloween for many years, never did that. This album here was released by a label called Raw Power, which is a division of Castle Communication PLC. Well, I don't know, it's probably something to do with Warner. Halloween is a major band, and I know that it is weird when major bands don't put out their old catalog back, but this is not an album that they disavow. This is not an album that they ignore completely, so I hope it will get a proper repress soon. To get the original press, it is very expensive, and I'm not willing to spend $200. I would rather wait a few more years and keep on listening to this CD. But yeah, Halloween, Better Than Raw. This is an album I remember when it came out, and it was probably the album that I heard the most back in '98 or '99, and yeah, I definitely hope to fill this gap on my records collection. Number 13, Evolution. Talk about a band that you think is successfully moving the respective genre forward creatively. I'm gonna talk about a band that started as a death metal band and recently migrated into a more gothic sound, although without leaving behind some of this spooky death metal aura that they have. I'm gonna show here the last 3 albums because I think this is when the switch definitely started to become more noticeable, although my favorite album by them is one before. I'm talking about Tribulation. So down below, this is still, although we have some catchy gothic vibe to it, this is still predominantly a death metal album. I'm not sure if this one, Where the Glooms Become Sound, is predominantly gothic, but definitely not a death metal album anymore, until they came with Sub Rosa in Eternum, their more recent album. And yeah, this one is very different in a way, in a sense, from what they used to be, although without losing their essence. But this one goes deep further into this gothic approach that they have, and I think they're one of the most influential metal bands of nowadays. I feel like a lot of doom metal bands, a lot of death metal bands, and a lot of occult rock bands have such big influence of Tribulation. And I think that they're one of the bands that in the future we're gonna remember as the nowadays classics of metal. Or at least I like to think so, because this is a band I like so much, and yeah, I think they're doing a great job in the last 10-15 years. Another one, Told Ya So. Show an album that someone recommended to you that impressed you enough to purchase it. Alright, I'm gonna talk about, well, that could be pretty much a lot of albums that I have here, but I'm gonna talk about a blind buy. I was playing in a festival a couple of years ago, and one guy introduced me to another guy and say, oh, here's the drummer of 8,000 Sufferings, or the previous drummer, Timo. And I was like, oh, I never heard of your band, I'm sorry. And the guy who introduced us was like, oh, this sounds like a mixture between Shining and, I don't know, but with the vibe of My Dying Bride and stuff like that. I was like, what? It's like, yeah, it's a mixture between Black and Doom, but not exactly in the way that Bethlehem did, but you're gonna like it. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna buy it. So I bought it instantly. And yeah, their previous drummer, I think he even signed it for me. I never asked them to sign on the cover because I like keeping the artwork the way it is. So yeah, he signed it here in the poster. And when I heard it at home, it was a great album. Yeah, it sounds great. And it's exactly how they described, you know, it has like this depressive black metal vibe without being cheesy, but also in a doom metal way that is very captivating. And last year I played in a festival in which 1,000 Sufferings were opening for us, and they were even better live. Although they have a different drummer now, it's not the guy that I met before. This is an album that I am glad it was suggested to me. So yeah, Told Ya So, 1,000 Sufferings. Next one, King Cheese. Recommend a power metal album to Marty. Marty, I don't know. I feel like I'm not the right person to talk about power metal to you. Pretty much everything of power metal that I have here, you already have. So that's the reason I asked a friend of mine from Brazil to record me a video, because I know that's up his alley. And yeah, if he sends me the video, I'm gonna put it here and translate it to you.
E aí pessoal, beleza? Meu nome é Lucas, eu falo aqui do Brasil e vim indicar duas bandas de power metal atual que estão me chamando bastante a atenção. A primeira delas, essa que eu infelizmente não tenho material físico, é o Aquila, né, com Servants of the New Dawn. Foi um álbum lançado ano passado e é uma banda da Polônia, né? Eles fazem a sonoridade dessa banda, eles estão no segundo álbum, né? Uma banda que surgiu em 2015, mas eles desde o primeiro álbum eles mostram que resgatam muito do que era feito no power metal nos anos 80. Esse álbum principalmente, ele parece muito o Hypertrace do Scanner, banda da Alemanha, e aqui eles entregam toda aquela verve que tínhamos em Walls of Jericho, no próprio Scanner, algo de Heaven's Gate ali, principalmente nos vocais, às vezes me remete muito Heaven's Gates da época do Living in Styria, só que com muita velocidade. Então aqui a gente tem uma obra baseada em sci-fi, em espaço, que são coisas que não são tão abordadas assim dentro do power metal, só que com muitos elementos. Tem bastante Judas Priest, tem alguns elementos de Judas. Então para quem gosta de um power metal com um pé um pouco mais no tradicional, o Aquila é uma das boas bandas para se acompanhar, que começaram há pouco tempo, né? Ainda mais que esse álbum tá fresco, saiu pela High Roller, então pode ser um bom indicativo para vocês correrem atrás. E a segunda banda é uma das minhas favoritas da nova geração, a banda italiana Alterium, com o álbum Of War and Flames. É o primeiro álbum deles, foi lançado em 2024, né? Os vocais da Nicoletta Rossellini, que apesar de ser femininos, a banda ela não tem nada de vocais líricos, né? A banda não se prende ao power metal do começo dos anos 2000, mas não se prende ao power metal sinfônico dos anos 2000, então é completamente diferente. Você vai ouvir muito mais de Stratovarius, o instrumental mais parecido com Nightwish, mas sem toda aquela pomposidade. É épico, é rápido, tem muitos elementos extremamente técnicos dentro da banda, só que não é guiado por um teclado ou por um vocal lírico, e sim por guitarras. Então os riffs estão bem na frente. Então é uma banda que me chamou muita atenção, que eu fui esperando algo mais sinfônico e fui surpreendido com uma banda de power metal clássico, que poderia muito facilmente estar em qualquer catálogo de qualquer gravador entre 98 e 2002. Então essas duas bandas que eu tenho para indicar para vocês. Agradeço o espaço. Até mais.
I'm gonna talk about an album of a Greek power metal band that you definitely know and you definitely like, I hope so, which is Sacred Outcry, Towers of Gold. This came out a couple of years ago, and in my opinion that's the best power metal album that came out, I don't know, ever since. Better than Raw probably. And I love the vocals here, I love the musicianship in here, everything here that when I listen to, it's like, what the fuck are these guys doing? They're so great. And yeah, best power metal band I've heard in many years. 2 Minutes to Midnight. What is the last album you bought in 2025? You know what? It's a funny thing that this category has its name, because the last one I bought last year is an Iron Maiden album, talking about Somewhere in Time. So yeah, recently I started finding the first presses of Iron Maiden on vinyl, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna give a chance to the first presses because they're not very expensive and they're somewhat easy to find. So I got first presses of the 7 first albums by Iron Maiden, and this was the last one I got, which are the 7 quintessential Iron Maiden albums for me. So yeah, this was my last purchase of 2025. I mean, at least the last purchase that arrived, because I've done some pre-orders that are still not here. Category number 17 then, Brain Drain. When feeling musical burnout, what is a nostalgic album that always makes you excited about music again? This is not my favorite album, although it's one of the top 10. But every time someone asks me, which album would you like to erase from your mind so you could listen to it for the very first time again, could be also the category here. I'm talking about Storm of the Light's Bane. Every time I have a brain fog, I don't know what to listen to, I put this album and it's exactly what I wanted to hear. I don't remember when I first heard it. It was back in the 90s. And yeah, and every time I listen to it ever since, it's the same emotions, the same positive outcome out of that. I love this album. I think this is an album that requires a weekly listen to at least, and I can never get tired of that, and it makes my love for music always sparks when I put it to play and the first riffs of Night's Blood start playing. And I think a lot of people here can relate, because this is a classic with only killers, a 10 out of 10. So there we go, there's Waldo. Show a classic or older album that you somehow overlooked for many years. Okay, I'm gonna talk about something now. When you think about a certain specific scene, especially when you talk about the Brazilian scene, it's not an uniform thing. So when I moved to Brazil, I discovered metal in Brazil, so I was always a big fan of the bands from my state, which was the state of Minas Gerais, which are bands that a lot of people associate to Brazil nowadays, which is Sepultura, Sarcófago, Mutilator, and some others from Cogumelo Records. But you tend to ignore a bit the bands that come from different states. So even though there are plenty classical bands in São Paulo area or in Rio de Janeiro area, I mean, I'm suspect to say my first film as a filmmaker when I graduated was a documentary about a band from Rio de Janeiro. I'm talking about Dorsal Atlântica. This is the film that I directed. So yeah, it's entirely on YouTube. I might put a link so you can watch it. But talking about São Paulo, a band that I always ignored because it was a band from São Paulo. Although I knew that they were a classic band, I was like, yeah, well, I don't have interest in bands from São Paulo because they're not from Minas Gerais and therefore they cannot be as great. And I'm talking about the legendary and Vulcano. So Vulcano is a band from Santos, which is the seaside coast of São Paulo. And although I always had their first record, which is live, Vulcano Live, I've never heard to their studio albums, and I never cared much about it because I was like, why am I gonna listen to Vulcano if I can play Inhi, if I can play Beneath the Remains? So Bloody Vengeance is an album that for more than 20 years I ignored, but when I first listened to it, because I was like, okay, what the fuck? Why am I doing this? And I love it from moment one, and I was like, why do I spend 20 years ignoring this band that I could be a big fan, I don't know, have seen live plenty of times, but I solemnly ignored because of geographic prejudice. I'm talking about Vulcano, and yeah, Bloody Vengeance is definitely that case. But yeah, I hope that people from my generation that are also from Minas and they are ignoring this album till nowadays can, I don't know, give a listen to it. Or yeah, I'm glad that the new generation doesn't have this stupid kind of stuff that we used to have in the past. We also had this thing that, oh, if you're a Sarcófago fan, you cannot be a Sepultura fan. If you're a Metallica fan, you cannot be a Megadeth fan. If you're a Mayhem fan, you cannot be a Buatsum fan. And yeah, I think that a lot of people in Brazil that are between 35 and 50 years old still have this kind of mentality with them. And this is something that we need to deconstruct with time. Although I did, in terms of bands, Vulcano was probably the last one I did. And yeah. So that was my Waldo. Category number 19. Hello, my name is... Hi, I'm Alex. Was there a video or stream that you participated in during 2025 that you're especially proud of? Include a link in the description. Well, no. I haven't been active in live streams ever since I feel like my metal gang here in YouTube stopped doing their lives. I'm talking about Jason Skills from Canada. He used to have a weekly live stream, and from that emerged another weekly live stream was Doctor and the Kid from Ryan Kidd and Dr. October, but I feel they all stopped doing that, reason for which I stopped participating on live streams. And yeah, well, I think that was more like a pandemics thing for most of us, because we had the time, we were always home, we were listening to music, and without being able to go to concerts and without being able to meet up with real people. I mean, I'm not saying that they're not real people, but meeting your pals outside of the context of the internet. Yeah, so no, I haven't done that. Although I did a video of my favorite albums last year, I wouldn't say that I'm proud of it, it's just something I did. But anyways, if anyone wants to invite me for a live stream to talk about black metal, doom metal or death metal, I might be the guy to hop on. Alright, so the last one, getting to the end of the album. I could show plenty of different albums from this band, but I'm gonna show specifically these three because Into Glory Ride, great name of category by the way, but I'm not gonna talk about Manowar tonight. Name a band that you want to see release one more great album before they retire. I'm gonna talk about Merciful Fate, and I'm showing these three specific albums because when Merciful Fate came back, it's been what, 5 years now? Yeah, I was in their first concert after 25 years. It was played exactly here in the city where I live in, Hanover. Although I didn't used to live in Hanover back then. And they were playing music only from these three releases. Don't Break the Oath, Melissa, and their first EP. And I was like, man, it was great. And they were playing a new track, The Jackal of Salzburg. And for a while now, they announced that they are recording, working on new music, and I'm really expecting them to release one album that goes more or less in the same vein of what they used to do in the past, rather than what they did in the 90s. Although I still like pretty much every album Merciful Fate did, nothing compares to Melissa, and I hope that they can release a great album. Although Michael Denner is not playing anymore, and I know that he was quite upset about it because Hank Sherman didn't invite him and he felt somewhat betrayed. Although they simply came back with the same lineup of the 90s in which Michael Denner was already not playing with them anymore. I can understand why he was upset though. But yes, I really hope Mercy releases an album that I can be proud of and I can be excited about listening to once before they retire or they die or whatever happens to them. So yeah, that was my metal tag of 2026. So maybe there will be a metal tag that I'm gonna participate next year. Maybe I'm gonna do a Brutal Assault video this year as I did for 2 years ago as well. Otherwise, till December on my best of the year video. So thank you very much for watching, and Alan and Marty, keep up with the great job. You make my Friday nights when I come back from work way better than what they used to be in nights before those streams. Thank you so much. Cheers.